Blessings, 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 beloved. I am Mama Pam, aka Pamela Dobson, and I do read, beloved, 7 minutes every day so you do not have to read. Today's read, we are resuming our read. We're resuming our read for Wednesday, December the 8th, 2022. Judges, the 9th chapter and the 5th verses through the 41st verses. We will be reading from enduringword.com. You can look it up on the internet. It's enduringword.com. So let me pull it up here on my tablet. Enduring Word commentary. 9 and 5. You can look it up too. You can follow along. You can follow along with me. Chapter 9, verses 5. Abimelech murders his brother. Lord Jesus. Now remember, Abimelech was a child born of the concubine. He wasn't one of the children of Gideon's wives. Gideon had 70 a score's 20 and 10. So he had 70 children. And Abimelech, the concubine's child, set up and asked him, y'all rather have all them boys ruling over you or just one me? And so they selected him. So he killed all of his brothers. Killed his brothers. Yeah, he did. All right, so let's see what's going on. So they gave him 70 shekels of silver from the temple of Baal Berith. The relatives of Abimelech on his mother's side, the concubine side, gave him some startup money to establish his evil leadership. He did this, but in a way that they never imagined. He hired worthless and reckless men to kill all his brothers, making certain there would never be a challenge to his leadership. He went and got some gangsters. He did like was done on January 4th. He called out the mob. He said the word. When I say the word, when I drop the dime, y'all know what to do. That's what he did, just like January 6th here in America. Now from the temple of Baal Berith, Abimelech received his pay from the temple dedicated to Baal. A work begun under the name and influence of the devil is not likely to end to the glory of God or to the welfare of man. Killed his brothers, 70 sons of Jerubbaal or Gideon. Therefore, Abimelech killed his brothers with the support of his relatives on his mother's side. The men of Sichem, Judges 9, 2 and 3, supported the plan because it was good for them, not because it was morally good or right. The men of Sichem make Abimelech their king. They went and made Abimelech king. So it is almost hard to tell who was worse, Abimelech who did the murdering or the men of Sichem who approved of it. This was an ungodly leader given to an ungodly people who first rejected God's leadership over the nation and then embraced a cruel and brutal man. Beth Milo. The word Milo derives from a verb meaning to be filled and originally referred to a rampart or earthwork, but its association with fortification may have developed into a reference to fortress generally. Thus, Beth Milo may be identical with the Tower of Sichem. Besides, the terebinth tree at the pillar was in Sichem. Ironically, will you people stop writing? Please stop writing. Stop writing. Stop writing. It's a distraction. Just listen and you can comment when I finish. Thank you. Because if you're writing, you're not listening. If you're writing on this platform, you are not listening. Write your notes. Write notes as you're listening, but don't write on the platform, please. Thank you. So besides the terebinth tree at the pillar that was in Sichem. Ironically, Abimelech's coronation took place at the same tree where Joshua had solemnly placed a copy of the law of God in Joshua 24 and 26. The law was right there, but Israel refused to read or to heed it. Nevertheless, Abimelech became the first person ever to be crowned king in Israel. His abortive rule, however, ran roughshod over the divine requirements for that office. The associations of such sites were very tenacious, and it is of interest to note that Rehoboam went to Shechem following the death of Solomon to secure the assimilation of Israel, although the city itself was in ruins at the time. 1 Kings 12, 1 and 5. Jotham's warning. Jotham was that one son that got away. Jotham. Now, when they told Jotham, Jotham was the only son of Gideon to escape the massacre at the stone. Judges 9 and 5. Here he told a parable to rebuke the men of Sichem for their choice of Abimelech as a king. He made this speech from the top of Mount Gerizim, the mountain from which Israel heard the blessings of God pronounced upon the obedient. Deuteronomy 11:29, 27:12. Joshua 8 and 3. About 150 years before this happened. The trees once went forth to anoint a king over them. In the parable told by Jotham, the worthy trees, such as the olive, the fig, and the vine, didn't want to be a king, but the unworthy bramble agreed to be king. The promise of the bramble, take shelter in my shade, was intended as ironic and ridiculous. The bramble was a low, thorny bush, and it offered shade to no one, especially to trees. Let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. So the bramble warned that he would be an oppressive ruler and destroy anyone who disagreed with him. One test of the character of a man is to see how he treats those who disagree with him. If his only desire is to destroy those who disagree, then he is much like the bramble. Plenty of good points, but no real substance for good. Finally, the position was offered. The bramble, which not only produced nothing of value and was quite worthless as timber, but was a positive menace to the farmer who had to wage continual war against its encroachments. The condensed moral of the whole fable is this: weak, worthless, and wicked men will ever be foremost to thrust themselves into power, and in the end to bring ruin upon themselves and on the unhappy people over whom they preside. If you have acted in truth and sincerity, Jotham raised his just for the sake of argument. He didn't believe that 68 of his brothers were murdered for the sake of truth and sincerity, because he is your brother. The real reason the men of Sichem supported Abimelech was because he was their brother. Abimelech's mother, though only a maidservant to Gideon, was for Sichem. Abimelech probably grew up in Sichem. Abimelech, the son of his maidservant. Abimelech's mother is called a slave girl, a term usually referring to a wife's servant, who is also a concubine, such as Hagar or Bilhah. Let fire come from Abimelech and devour the men of Sichem. So Jotham's warning to the men of Sichem was that their unwise choice would come back to hurt them. He predicted that fire would come forth from Abimelech and devour them. After this bold warning, he ran away and fled for the fear of his life. The prophecy of Jotham was not to be immediately fulfilled. The fire smoldered for 3 years, but at last manifested itself. The fire was the fire that was within the cosm, not the literal fire. You have to look deep at spiritual. 41. Jotham's warning is fulfilled. So God sent a spirit of ill will between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. Everything seemed fine between the men of Shechem and Abimelech for 3 years. And then, in judgment, God removed the peace that was between them and sent the spirit of ill will. The writer of Judges used an interesting word to say that Abimelech had reigned over Israel. This word is unique to the book and is perhaps chosen to distinguish Abimelech's ill-fated rule from that of the true judges. Abimelech was more like a tyrant than a king. The extent of Abimelech's kingdom was very limited. Only Shechem, Beth Millo, Arumah, Judges 9:4-1, and Thebez, Judges 9:50, are mentioned as under his jurisdiction, and it's unlikely that it extended beyond on a portion of western Manasseh. God gave the devil, the evil one, I say, D, and then you spell evil, E-V-I-L. The devil is evil, the evil. So God gave the evil one commission to enter into or work upon their minds and hearts, knowing that he himself, and by his own inclination, would fill them with mistakes and jealousies and dissensions and heartburnings, which would end in civil wars and mutual ruin. Set men in ambush. They robbed all who passed by. Prompted by the spirit of ill will, the men of Shechem set ambushes on the mountain roads, hoping to disrupt the trade routes that profited Abimelech. This would have the effect of reducing the number of travelers and caravans in such a troubled area, thus emptying the pockets of Abimelech as well as hitting at his pride, for he could not guarantee the safety of travel in his domain. The men of Shechem chose a leader. So the men of Shechem put their confidence in him. The men of Shechem lost their confidence in Abimelech. So they chose a new leader named Gaal, the son of Ebed. They went into the house of their god and ate and drank and cursed Abimelech. So the men of Shechem were so confident that their new leader Gaal could protect them against Abimelech that they started throwing drunken parties and openly cursing Abimelech and challenging him to a fight. Increase your army and come on out. Now when Zebul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gaal, the son of Ebed, his anger was aroused. Zebul, the city manager, on behalf of Abimelech, told Abimelech all the Gaal and his rebellion. Zebul advised Abimelech to come and attack the city. You shall rise up early and rise upon the city. Zebul advised Abimelech to organize a surprise attack against the rebels of Shechem. 41, okay. And 34-41. This will be the last portion, the last read. So Abimelech and all the people who were with him rose by night and lay in wait. Abimelech agreed with and followed the plan suggested by Zebul. Zebul said to him, you see the shadows of the mountains? As if they were men. So Zebul deceived Gaal, allowing Abimelech's troops to take position with the advantage of their superior positions. Abimelech and his soldiers drove out Gaal and his men. Where indeed is your mouth now? So when Zebul knew that Gaal was at a disadvantage, he could not resist rebuking him for his proud, arrogant words against Abimelech, an enemy he could not defeat. Gaal probably was not prepared for a siege, so he had little choice but to leave the city walls behind and confront Abimelech out in the open. So that takes us to 42 and 45. 42, 45. Okay, so we just read through to 42. Okay, so we read through 41. So that means the rest of the read we will get tomorrow. All right, so that's a good place to stop. Judges 9 and 42 are where we will pick up our read on tomorrow. So the commentary was only 15 minutes long. Blessings, blessings, blessing. Again, we are Mama Pam of the SMRF Ministry, SMRF Family International Ministry, where we read 7 minutes every day so you don't have to. And we read the commentary at 7 p.m. in the evening Central Standard Time. The Lord lays upon your heart to give any blessing, $70 and above, to Mama Pam and the SMRF Ministry. Feel free to do it. I promise you I'll put it to good use. I always do. And if you don't bless me, God gonna bless